everybody, it's Kelsee Briana J, and today I'm going to be talking about the new Natasha Denona mini palettes. So you all already know when she comes out with her new palettes, I always scoop them up, and this one is no exception. This one is the mini retro palette. So this dropped on Sephora's website, so I placed my order, and right now the orders have been a little bit delayed, so it took me a little bit longer to get this than usual, but I have it now, so let's go ahead and jump into it. So this is what the palette looks like. It is the same size that her mini palettes typically are. They are small enough to fit in the palm of my hand. So there are 5 eyeshadows in here, and in each pan there's 0.8 grams of products, or 0.028 ounces of products. So I've talked about it before about the price per gram and if this is a great value. If you are looking for that and you are looking for the price per ounce and the price per gram, these are not a better value than getting her larger eyeshadow pan palettes, but who these are intended for are people who want to test out Natasha Denona and see if they want to commit to her brand, and this gives you a way to test it out at a lesser price point, but it's not necessarily a better value. So the description for this eyeshadow palette reads that this is a mini palette that features 5 dreamy colors for romantic retro looks, perfect for a soft pastel look and everyday wear. So I'll go ahead and insert swatches for this palette. Like I said, there are 5 different colors. Of the 5, 3 of the colors are repromotes. And I know that you all are like, repromotes? Which ones? I'll let you all know, but at the end of the video, I'll go more in depth about the comparisons of them, and I'll let you all know if they are similar or not similar to the original ones, because I have pretty much all of Natasha Denona's eyeshadow palettes. So the shades in this palette are as follows. I don't know exactly how to pronounce this word. I don't know if it's Galaxia, I don't know if it's Galaxia, and I don't know if it's Galaxia. I'm not sure. I've looked it up, and 3 different ways have said how to pronounce it in 3 different ways. So let me know. So this one is described as a light nude with green and blue sparks. It is an existing shade in the Star eyeshadow palette. Next we have Industrial, and this one is a green taupe with silver reflex, and this one is an existing shade in the 28 eyeshadow palette. Next we have 60s, and this one is a greenish gray. This one is a new shade. Next we have Vintage Taupe, and this one is an antique rose. It is an existing shade in the Tropic eyeshadow palette. And lastly, we have the color Pixie, which is a pink with champagne shift, and this one is a new shade. So as you all can see, I have this on my eyes. I'm going to walk you through this. I used all of the eyeshadows in this palette on my lids because I want you guys to see it in action. And then following that, we'll talk about this at the end. I'll go more in depth about the comparisons like I said, and then I will let you know my final thoughts on this palette. So let's go ahead and jump into it, and I hope that you all enjoy this video. So I will talk to you all shortly. So I'm going to start off by putting a little bit of concealer on my eyes, and today I'm going to just take a dab of Tarte Shape Tape, an old faithful, and blend that out. Check. So now let's dip into this palette. So I'm going to start with a blending brush. This is an Esom G34 in the color Vintage Taupe. And right on top of that concealer, I'm going to lightly fluff this color in my crease, and this is going to be my transition color. So it's going to start off our eye look. I'm going to go back and forth, give this a little bit of structure. This color looks very light in the pan, so let's see if it's going to build up at all. So it's building up a little bit, and definitely applying a concealer that was lighter helped the situation because this is very light. I am about a MAC NC42, NC43 as far as complexion, and I feel like this is barely showing up on me, so this definitely will work better on somebody who is more fair in complexion. But I feel like if you have a deeper complexion, you are not going to be able to use this color in your crease, even though it is building up, because it will barely show up on you because it's barely showing up on me. But I'm working with it. I've dipped in here about 3 or 4 times to get the amount of color that I see right now. But this is good for a transition color. If you have a deeper complexion and you are interested in using shades like this, just know that you're going to have to use them as lid colors, not necessarily as colors that will work in your crease. So I'm just going to go back and forth and do the same thing on this eye. So that applied really smoothly and evenly. It's a light color, so it did take a while to build it up, but if you had a lighter complexion, it would show up a lot easier and a lot quicker. But this color is really nice and it's very blendable. So now I'm going to go into a more tapered blending brush because I need something to give me a little bit more structure. And I am going to dip into the color 60s. My mom was born in the 60s. And I feel like the 60s was a time that was just very cool, very retro at this point, and they were just all about peace and love and understanding. So I feel like the 60s was a time to be alive for sure. Like, people really fought for things and they stood up for what they believed in the 60s. So looking back, I feel like all those people were soldiers, seriously. But I am going to take this color directly in the crease. And this brush is more tapered, so it is going to apply it there. I'm not going to take it too far up because I don't want to blend it over the taupe color that I applied. I just want this to give me that structure right in the crease area and add just a little bit of drama. So I just am going to take a little bit, and then I'm going to take it all the way on the inner corner and then go in small circular motions once I apply it to slightly blend it out. But that's what we're going for. So now I'm going to take a flat shader brush, and this is a 773 brush by Delium Tools. And with the color Industrial, I am going to tap that on the lid and take it all the way across. And then I'm going to leave a little bit of space on the inner corner because I do want to brighten it up just a little bit. But I really just want a shimmery color all on the lid, even on the outer corner. And I'm using packing motions, and I'm almost covering up the color that we applied in the crease, like slightly. I'm just going right on top and feathering it because I do want to soften up this look just a little bit. But that looks really pretty. I'm not going to pack this color on because I do want it to be almost like a wash. But it does have great pigmentation, and I like the color, and I like the way that it applied. It's very smooth. So I took this color up very far because basically I wanted to hover over all of my work. I want everything to just look like a dazzly, beautiful, shining star. So I'm taking this shimmer all the way up, even like by the transition. I'm not taking any more products, but because this is a glittery type eyeshadow, with me taking my blending brush and kind of diffusing everything, the glitter is naturally gravitating to these areas because I want this look to be very shiny and very just iridescent. So I'm just taking my blending brush and blending it out, and I'm blending it all the way up. Next, I'm taking another Esom brush. This one is an S31 pencil brush and the color Galaxia. And I'm going to dip into this color and pop that on the inner corners and blend it over. Yes, this is a really beautiful iridescent color. This is really pretty. I am going to take this color on the lower lash line as well. And I'm going to take it over a little bit further than I typically do. I'm going to take it to about the midpoint of the lower lash line. Next, I'm going to take the color Pixie and pop that right next to the color that I just applied and blend it over. I'm going to start inching towards the very outer corner, but I'm not going to connect this color to the top because I do feel like I need a little bit more definition down here. And lastly, I'm going to go back with a little bit of the color 60s and wrap that around and finish off the lower lash line and make sure to connect it to the top. So now I'm going to add liner and lashes and finish off my makeup, and I'll be right back. Alright guys, so here's the finished look, and I hope that you all enjoyed the tutorial. I like the way that my look turned out. I feel like it's very beautiful. It's very classy. I can see myself wearing this on a night out on the town when I finally can go out on a night on the town. So even with that being said, I like the way that my eyes turned out, but in reality, I'm only going to be able to do a look that looks exactly like this for me to be able to use this palette because this palette is very light. If you are a shade and a half lighter than me and deeper, I really don't feel like you're going to truly be able to enjoy this palette because it is so light. These colors right here, they don't really add too much depth. This color right here is super light. You guys saw me use it as a transition shade, but I had to build it up so much to get it to be where it is, and it's still even light doing that. I would say it's not really going to be for people who have a richer complexion for sure, but I definitely don't even think it's for myself. I can make it work, but it took a little bit too much work for my personal preference. Now, if you have a lighter complexion, I can see you enjoying this palette. I feel like this palette has enough for you to be able to create different types of eye looks, and you can do more with these two colors right here than somebody that has a deeper complexion can. This color right here is so light, it barely showed up on me. These two colors right here would be colors that I would reach for if I were doing a no makeup look and be serious about it, because these colors on my complexion do absolutely nothing. They don't stand out. They just pretty much blend in. These colors right here are better, and I really do like them, but if I'm looking at do I need them, I would say no. The formulation of this palette is really nice though. I've spoken at great lengths about how Natasha Denona mini palettes can be hit or miss. Sometimes her mini palettes are beautiful. They blend out, they give you amazing pigmentation. You can create some beautiful looks with them. And then other times it's like, oh my gosh, where did you go wrong? You switched the formula and they're chalky. They don't give you pigmentation. You really can't do anything with it. I would say formulation wise, this is one of the good ones, but color wise, I would say it's more limited than some of her other mini palettes. So I really do like this one, but I don't love it. I'm kind of 50-50 with it. But I'm okay with that because I understand that every single palette is not going to work for every single person. There's different palettes out here for different people, and this palette I don't feel like is made for me, but I could see someone else loving it because it is a nice quality mini palette. But on that same note, looking at the color story of this palette, it doesn't really make sense to me. I like these three colors, and these two you could leave them in my opinion, but if I'm looking at the name of the palette and the name of the shades and how it's supposed to remind us of the 60s, it doesn't really put me in the mind frame of the 60s. Now, I was born nowhere near the 60s. I wasn't even thought of in the 60s. My mama was barely thought of in the 60s, okay? But my grandparents really came of age in the 60s, and so I see pictures of them all the time. They tell me stories about the 60s all the time, so I really feel connected to that decade, and so I feel like I was there, and I've seen so many inspirational photos and how they used to dress, how they used to do their makeup and their hair, and looking at the photos that my grandparents have shown me, I really don't connect this color story to the 60s. In my opinion, when I think about the 60s, I think about white eyeshadow, blue eyeshadow, graphic eyeliner, super intense lashes. Think Twiggy. This is not giving me that. And even if we were looking on the opposite side, because it's always different trends and stuff going on in the decade, everybody's not going to follow one trend the entire decade. Like, there was a sophistication to the makeup that wasn't very bold like what I just described. On the opposite end, we had people like Sophia Loren, and we had people who were just very much so into glam like Diana Ross, and I still don't see either of them wearing these colors, so I don't get the color inspiration. If we were going to pick a decade for this palette, I would say it reminds me more of the 50s than anything, because the 50s were a more modest time and people were just a little bit more industrial like, and so I could see this color story relating to that. But as far as the 60s, it doesn't really give me that. But let me know if you were around in the 60s and you watch my videos. Let me know if you connect to this color story, and let me know if you guys think that this reminds you of the 60s, because it might just be me, but I personally don't get the 60s from this. But other than that, I like the palette. I'm not going to say that it is a 100% need. I know that 3 of the colors are re-promote colors from her other palettes, but in my opinion, none of the re-promotes look anything like the colors that she originally launched in her palettes. There are slight differences to the colors that are in this mini palette, and I feel like the mini palette is formulated different than the rest of the colors that she re-promoted to put in here, as well as a color change. The color Vintage Taupe was re-promoted from the Tropic Tropic palette into the Mini Retro palette, and in my opinion, the color Vintage Taupe in the Mini Retro palette is a little bit more neutral and not as pink as the color Vintage Taupe in the Tropic palette. Both of them feel similar though, so they have the same smoothness, they have the same amount of pigmentation, and overall it gives me the same vibe. So on my complexion, it's going to read pretty much the same color, but just looking at it with my artist eye, I can see that there is a slight color difference. The color Industrial was re-promoted from the 28 Green Brown eyeshadow palette, and I feel like these colors are similar, but the color Industrial in the Mini Retro palette is just a little bit darker than it is in the original 28 Pan Green Brown palette. I do feel like both of them are formulated pretty similarly, but I feel like the color Industrial in the 28 Pan palette is more shimmery, and the color Industrial in here is a little bit less shimmery and a little bit more slate-like, and it has the shimmer particles in it, but it definitely doesn't have that bling appeal that the original Industrial has. And lastly, the color Galexia was re-promoted from the Star palette, and they put it in the Mini Retro palette, and these colors are not alike at all. The only similarities that they share are that they are shimmery eyeshadows, because the Galexia in the Star palette is so chunky and it's just not formulated well in my opinion. It's one of those shades in here that I always kind of hate liked. It's like you can get it to work, but you have to manipulate it because it almost has this chunky fallout and you have to kind of crush it down and do too much to get it to work. It's pretty if you can get it there, but just getting there is a journey. And the Galexia in the Mini Retro palette is a completely different color. This color has a lot of different colors in there. I see a little bit of pinkiness to it. It has a little bit of a blue / purple glitter in there, and it overall is just a little bit more warm toned than the original one. So to me, these colors are not the same. Plus, the formulation of this one in the Mini Retro palette is much smoother, and I definitely prefer this one way more than I prefer the one in the Star palette. So I really like that one, and that one was a major upgrade. Even though these colors are re-promotes, as you all can see, there are subtle differences. So if you already have these palettes and you had your eye on the Mini Retro palette and you were like, I'm not going to get that palette, if you already have these because you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not buying that and I only get 2 new shades, technically, I would say you are getting 4 new shades. The only one that was pretty much the same was Vintage Taupe, but even still then, like I said, there was a subtle difference. So when it all comes down to it, for me, I'm going to say I'm going to keep it because I collect Natasha Denona palettes. Plus, I do this, and so I want to always have things for a reference for you all. But like I said, if you have a deeper complexion, I would skip it. If you're my complexion, I would skip it. If you already have these palettes and you barely use those colors anyways, I would skip it. This one doesn't excite me, but it's not bad either. So it's just going to work for who it's intended for, which is a lighter person. And if you like that, I would say get it because it is nice. But if not, I can say skip it safely. Like, you're not going to lose any sleep if you don't get this. So let me know your thoughts on it down in the comment section. I truly look forward to seeing what you guys say, and I will check you all in my very next video, which will be tomorrow. Smooches. Bye.